Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in the industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by Jack Bosch, who's been a principal in over 3,000 transactions where he's primarily buying and selling land and on the outskirts of town that most real estate investors don't even want to touch, me included. Maybe after this that'll change. So it's a fascinating topic and personally something I literally have never heard anybody else talk about. And Jack teaches others to do this as well, so listen closely. He's also a best-selling Amazon author with his book Forever Cash. But before we get started with Jack, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Appreciate your time. So you've got a fascinating topic that, like I said, personally, I haven't heard anybody else really talk about doing this. And in my business of buying and selling houses, we periodically get calls for land, and we just say, no, we don't buy land because we don't know what the heck to do with it. And so I know you've got a really interesting topic to talk about here. Before we get into kind of the land investing, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and really how you got into doing what you do?
All right, absolutely. Well, as you can tell from my accent, I'm not from around here. I'm not from Ohio or anywhere there. I'm actually, and certainly not from Texas. But I'm originally from Germany. So I came from Germany in 1997 to the U.S., literally just armed with 2 suitcases and a bunch of student debt and the dream. Finished my college degree here and then got a job and started working the 8 to 5. Actually, in my case, it was more like an 8 to midnight. Traveling a lot and just not liking it, hating it after a while. I was traveling 100%. I was away from home all the time. I just gotten married to my wife, who I met here in the U.S. who was a foreigner herself, and now actually we're both citizens of the United States, so yay.
All right.
But we basically didn't like it. So I looked around, and after a long search and we found real estate, and after an even longer search within real estate, we stumbled upon land, and we started flipping land. And then the first land deal we got was we paid $400 for a piece of land, free and clear, no mortgage on it, and flipped it literally to the neighbor the next day for $4,000. So we're like, hey.
Hey, Jack. So what did in your job? I'm always interested in this because I too am what we refer to as a corporate refugee. So you kind of left the corporate role. What role were you in? Like what general function?
I was the business department of a IT company.
Okay.
So the thing is, I don't know anything about computers. So in itself, that was a challenge because I was in an environment that, number one, that I wasn't comfortable with. I didn't understand. And the only reason I got in the job was because I had kind of worked as a student worker at a similar company in Germany. And I was able to show that I had some experience in there, and this company was growing back then so fast that I was employee around 500, and a couple of years later they had 7,000 people working for them.
Wow.
So they exploded. But then also what happened was then the dot-com bubble burst, and 3,000 people got laid off in a year, and luckily I wasn't one of them, but I saw the writing on the wall, and I just basically prayed to God I could make it till the moment that I had my green card, my permanent residency in the United States.
Yeah.
Because once you have that, you can actually leave the job. You can do you're just like an American, except for you can't vote. But up till that point, I couldn't even leave that job. So I was working at that technology company. I didn't like it.
Okay.
and I wasn't really comfortable with it, and I felt like I constantly had to learn and struggle just to keep up with what seemed to come easy for everyone around me.
Yeah. So what year was this when you ultimately went out on your own, or you started investing?
I quit my job in October of 2003, but I started my first deal. I got it accepted, or I got the notification that I got it accepted actually on Christmas Day 2002.
And that first deal was land.
That was land.
Yeah. So how did that? I don't know anybody that. There's a lot of people that are interested in real estate investing, and I can't say that I've ever heard somebody say, "But what I'm interested in is land." It's always houses, because somehow those are sexy until you get in the business and you realize that it has nothing to do with the houses. But how did that even come about?
Well, the first deal to correct myself, the first deal I got under contract was a triplex. Triplex. I always say that, basically 3 units in one. And we got us in Phoenix, Arizona, where I live, and we got that thing under contract for $45,000 in a pretty sketchy area of town, and I figured it was worth about $85,000. The problem was I had bought a book and got some in the library on how to do a wholesale, which I had no idea about, and I put it out there, and I got about 25 phone calls on it, and nobody wanted to buy the thing. So in that moment, I realized I had 2 choices. Either I buy that thing and fix it up myself. And in that moment, I realized I didn't have a clue about real estate. I didn't have the first idea of how much it costs to repair a kitchen, how much it costs to repair a bathroom. I mean, somebody could have given me a quote for 20 grand for a kitchen, and I would have perhaps said yes, because I really didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I did the next logical thing. I took option number 2, which is I freaked out and I backed out of the deal.
Yeah.
And I realized that wasn't for me at the moment, because I wasn't about to take on a second mortgage. I wasn't about to learn all this stuff. It just wasn't my comfort level at that moment.
Right.
But then it just happened that the next thing I came across was, and that actually, sorry, I'm recovering from a little cough still. But the next thing I focused on was actually tax delinquent properties, meaning tax liens and tax deeds and those kind of things. And even though I didn't buy this property through a tax lien or tax deed, I liked the sheer fact that people don't pay their property taxes and let their properties go for a tax foreclosure, that they're willing to walk away from these properties for absolutely nothing, completely blew me away.
Yeah.
So that first deal that I got was a deal where I sent some direct mail, some letters to people that owed property taxes, because I didn't want to attend the auction, because if you attend the tax lien auction, it's going to take years before you get the property. And if you attend the tax deed auction like you do in Texas, well, there's a lot of competition for these properties.
Yeah.
So I figured, why should I attend those? What if I can figure out how to get to these people directly? And so I did. I sent them a letter, and I sent out, I think, like 200 letters, and I got a bunch of responses. And one of them was that property was a piece of land, a lot, house here, house there, lot in the middle, and the owners just didn't want it anymore and gave it to us for $400. And I figured, I mean, it must be worth more than $400 if there's houses on the properties next door. It should be worth $20,000 or something like that. So I felt comfortable. It was in my comfort level to say, well, if I can get it for $400, why not? And the worst case that can happen is I lose $400, right?
Right.
So it's like not my credit is not ruined. My life is not over, right? It's $400. So I bought it and literally put down a sign on the property, and the neighbor comes over and says, like, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm selling it. It's like, how much do you want for it? And I didn't even negotiate with him. He offered me $4,000, and I said I'll take it because I was just so happy. And then the next deal happened to come, was also a land deal. We bought 40 acres for $500 in the middle of nowhere in Arizona, but still a great deal. And we sold that online for $9,500. Now all of a sudden it's like, I like land, because if I can get it for 5 to 25 cents on the dollar, I don't actually have to know much about real estate, and I can still do a bunch of deals.
So some of the, well, we'll get into this a little bit more, but on these deals, are you typically taking possession of them? Are you taking ownership of them? Or are you trying to effectively assign?
No, I typically take, well, I didn't even know when I started that I could assign these deals. So yeah. I always took possession because it's only like pocket change.
Right.
Like with pocket change, the nice thing is you can buy it, you can go on a vacation, you can come back and then sell it whenever you want to sell it, versus in a wholesaling or signing deal, you're operating in that window of time that you have until the contract expires. So it's more of a hustle. When you just buy it, it's not a hustle. You just buy it and you go turn around and sell it.
Right, right. Okay. So from there, so how did you kind of? I guess it sounds like one of your first deals was in the middle of nowhere. So where did you tend to over time focus on? Because I know you primarily focus on the outskirts of town, right? You're not necessarily
Right.
buying lots in town and in neighborhoods, right?
Right. I do, but I have kind of like three and a half different areas that I like to focus on. My favorite area is the outskirts of larger cities. So big metropolitan areas are great, but even smaller, mid-sized cities of a couple of 100,000 people are fine. I like the outskirts of those because that is where land is cheap, yet is still attractive. Because people buy it because they want to buy it. They can't afford to buy something infill or something that's cost millions of dollars. So they want to buy something a little bit outside of town, hold on to it for 10 or 20 years, and then wait for development come in and then play the appreciation game. In the meantime, it doesn't cost them any property taxes. Most of these properties only have a few $100s a year in property taxes. And so it's easy to hold on to, easy to keep.
Yeah.
And that's area number one. And indeed, that's some of my buyers have made tremendous profits. They bought a property, and sure enough, within a few years, see they came close. Property that's worth 20 grand is now worth 150. They've done really well.
Yeah.
The other area we're focused on is small towns. Small towns, for example, especially in the Midwest, there's a lot of small towns, and a lot of the land outside of the small towns is actually used for farmland. But in the small towns, there's lots of empty lots that you can buy, and they're perfect candidates to sell to the neighbor to expand his backyard. So you can buy those, and then we also like to buy, especially in the southern half of the United States, where not everything is used for farming. We like to buy large acreage in rural areas.
Okay.
Because large acreage, I mean, how would you like to have 40 acres out in the countryside? Wouldn't that sound good? Like with a little creek going through it, with some trees, something where you can put a little cabin on for the weekend. I mean, a lot of people are attracted to that.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I think a lot of real estate investors historically they just in their mind for one reason or another assume that the land is very illiquid.
Right. And it is,
Yeah.
and you are somewhat correct if you do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Most people do it the wrong way. So to do it the right way, for example, what we offer is, for example, if you put a $100,000 piece of land on the market, asking $100,000 for it, and not offering any kind of financing help or anything like that, it's going to sit there for a while before it sells.
Right.
It's going to sit there for a year, perhaps even 2 years before it sells. However, what if you buy this $100,000 piece of land for 20 grand and you can sell it for 45? Wouldn't that move much faster? I mean, it's less than half price.
Right.
All of a sudden, anyone in that market is going to jump on it because they're going to want to have it at half price.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's how we sell a lot of our properties, wholesaling. The buyers take the properties and they go perhaps sell them on the market, and then they wait 2 years before it sells, and they double their money in 2 years. But we took our money and more than doubled it in a matter of a month or 3 weeks.
Sure. And talk a little bit about how you're marketing this land, because back to the kind of illiquidity part. I mean, are you putting these on? Are you selling them through commercial brokers, or are you finding people that own land, around the plot that you bought and marketing to them, or how are you effectively marketing this?
It's really all of the above, but usually we market them ourselves online. We have a website that anyone is welcome to go and check it out and verify. It's called sunnyland.com. So the opposite of rainy land, sunnyland. Sunnyland.com, where there's a bunch of land for sale that we own, but some of our students own some land too, as I'm teaching this and sharing this now too. But we're putting it out there, and we built up a big buyers list, but there's also other websites. So when somebody's starting out new, what I usually recommend to them is I don't even tell them to start their own website. I tell them to use what's already out there. There's websites like Landflip, landwatch.com. I always say that if you have a piece of land and you want to flip it, wouldn't a website called Landflip sound like a good place to put it?
Yeah.
And indeed it is. It gets hundreds of thousands of visitors. So we sell them there in terms of channels. But I think more important is how we sell them is we make them really affordable. And we make them really affordable two ways. Number one, by wholesaling them, discounting the price, often by over 50%. And number two, by offering seller financing. And that's kind of our secret weapon in the moment and has been for years. Because when selling with seller financing, you actually don't have to discount the property by a whole lot. You still can, of course. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
We do seller financing, and we allow people to put a low down payment, perhaps only 10%. So therefore, that $50,000 property that you bought for $10,000, you can now go sell it for 45 grand, ask for, let's say, a $5,000 down payment, and carry $40,000 in financing and at $500 a month. So at the end of the day, you got all your money back within 10 months, plus, and in many cases, you get all your money back with just the down payment, and now you have cash flow from land, which is two words that really never are being put together.
Right, right. So, in terms from a business perspective, are you getting loans on these and then wrapping them, or are you just self-funding them, or what are you typically doing?
We're self-funding them because you really don't usually need outside financing. We've never, in 3,000 deals that I've done, I've never talked to the bank ever. So because you can do this kind of ratio where we sell a bunch for cash and another portion with seller financing. And if you do it right, then the seller financing front, often the down payment pays for what you paid for the property.
Right.
Especially the cheaper properties, like something really cheap that's worth $10,000. You might have only paid $800 for that thing.
Right.
Well, you're asking for a $1,000 down payment, you got your money back, and $100 or $150 a month for 7 years. You got a nice little cash flow coming in, and you have no hassles because you're not dealing with tenants, toilets, or termites, and basically it's just mailbox money coming in. You have no maintenance, no hassles whatsoever. So we've used it to build at the peak of it almost $100,000 a month in cash flow from these land deals.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, you can build this up as little or as big as you want.
So, is it just me, or is this a very uncompetitive space? I mean, the house buying business, it couldn't be more competitive. I say that's at one end of the spectrum, and you're the first person, literally, that I think has ever talked about buying and selling land this way. Does that obviously benefit you that you don't have a lot of competition? Yeah,
it's actually not you. It is probably the most uncompetitive space in the entire real estate area.
Wow.
Because literally, I mean, these properties that we're targeting are not listed on the MLS. They're not in foreclosure because they never had a mortgage in the first place. They might have some back taxes. Actually, 2/3 of my deals I bought without any back taxes, free and clear. And they have 100% equity in many cases. And nobody goes after that market.
Yeah.
So therefore, when you send out the letter, yet the people that own these properties might have owned it for 30 years, might have inherited it from their parents. They don't want them. They don't need them.
Right.
It costs them property taxes every year. And so they're hyper motivated to sell these properties, but nobody sends them a letter. So we're the only ones doing that. And as a result, we're getting response rates of up to 20% from people that sent a letter consistently.
Wow.
After one letter, not the multiple letter campaign, just one letter, you get a 20% response rate of people saying like, yes, I want to sell my property. So yes, it's great, and also it makes other aspects of it much more easy to deal with. For example, in the house world, as I'm learning, because now I'm also doing some house deals. In the house world, if a seller calls you, you jump on that lead, right? You gotta jump, because by tomorrow he's called 5 other people and they have taken the deal.
Right.
No, in the land world, somebody calls us, we fill out the form. Whoever picks up the phone fills out the form. Ask him all this question. That form gets emailed to us, gets automatically entered into a spreadsheet or into order making software, and we only look at that once a week. So if somebody calls us on Saturday, okay, they get somebody to answer the phone and a call center. We don't even look at that. We don't even look at that deal and make an offer until 6 days later, because I only make offers on Fridays.
Wow, and because there's not a lot of, I presume there's not a lot of sales activity in land, the type of land you're talking about. How do you, I guess you're buying it so cheap that maybe it doesn't matter, but how do you kind of comp that out? I mean, are you traditionally real estate investors are looking for recent sales to find their comparables to calculate what the value is? How are you doing that with land?
Well, there's actually a surprising amount of sales activity going on in land. There's actually, if you look at a website like landwatch.com, they get several million visitors every single month
Okay.
just looking for land. So there's a fairly active market out there in land. It's just that the average real estate investor doesn't go after it. It's just a few people that do that. And then there's the average Joe out there is our typical customer that wants to just buy something outside of the city that they can put their RV on, they can hang out. So the question of how do we get comps? We can, yes, there is. However, the issue is not so much about a lack of sales activity. There's a lot of it. The issue is really more about getting access to the sale comps all over the country. Now, not everyone is. You're probably operating in your local market, and you have access to the MLS, and you have access to any kind of other data services that give you all that's listed and all that's sold. Well, if I do deals all over the country, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I do deals from Hawaii all the way to Florida. So if I do a deal in Florida, I don't have access to the MLS. So the solution is that one interesting thing that I learned about land, that land typically doesn't sell for asking price. Land typically sells about 20 to 25% below asking price. So therefore, what I do is I go just look at what do people ask for their properties right now. So what's the listed price of the properties? And if I find 10 properties on the market that are all listed at 40 grand, well, guess what? I subtract about 25% of that, and I come to a market value of $30,000, and I'm done. I have my comp.
Yeah,
it's really as simple as that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So talk. You got to tell. You can't say that you bought land in Hawaii and not elaborate on that a little bit. So talk about. There's not a lot of land in Hawaii. So talk a little bit about a deal like that.
Well, there's. You're right. If you want to buy land in Honolulu, well, good luck. I'm sure you can find the occasional treasure hunt kind of deal, but that's not what we're talking about. However, the Big Island is the biggest island by them all, the island of Hawaii, and it has the fewest people living there, and then there is some fee simple land available that you can actually buy there. So there's actually subdivisions. And these are not the prettiest subdivisions. I mean, they're fine, but it's where the lava streams went down. So there's like lava. It's like there's nothing growing. There's like a lava stream. It's all black, and then there's some stuff where something is growing and so on. But people have carved out acre-sized lots out of there, and there's lots of houses there. Now these houses, these lots are only worth about $20,000 to $35,000. So surprising. In Hawaii, you can buy land at $20,000 to $35,000, but they're really far away and they're kind of like in the side where the tourists don't get to and so on, and dirt roads and so on. But still, people want to live in Hawaii low cost. They go live there. And we just bought them for about, we buy them typically for about anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000. And then we flip them quickly for cash, usually for $15,000, $17,000. Or if we do seller financing, we flip them typically for about $25,000 with a good $25,000 to $3,000 down payment, which covers almost our cost, and then perhaps $400 a month payment. So within 4 or 5 months, we get all our money back, 100% return, and then the rest is just profit and cash flow of $400 for another 7, 8 years, and it's a beautiful thing.
That's fascinating. So Jack, are you only wholesaling, or do you keep any for yourself to speculate, or what else do you do with? What are some of the other exit strategies you might use?
Well, the exit strategies, interestingly, that's what I talk about a lot in my book, Forever Cash, is I actually use yes, I do keep some of them. So some of the gems, they're just too good to pass on. For example, I have almost an acre commercial property on a main road in Phoenix, getting 40,000 cars driving by, and I paid 22 cents on the dollar in that thing. I just hold on. I'll buy a medical plaza. I'll build a medical plaza, or perhaps a little food court kind of thing, like a little strip thing with 4 or 5 stores, a Subway, and a couple of things sometime down the road there. I think that's probably the best use of it. And I'll just lease it out, and I own it free and clear. I'll build the building with cash, and then I'll just probably make 10 grand a month or so on that thing. And that's an extra 10 grand a month of what I call in my book Forever Cash. So I have some of those. I have some properties in the outskirts of Stein where I know the city is growing towards. So properties that I bought for $5,000, they're worth $30,000, or for bought for $7,000, they're worth $50,000, and I expect them to be worth $200,000 in 5 years from now. So yeah, that's an extra little retirement insurance that I have there. but other than that, what I use as an exit strategy is I use my land business to make money. And like any business, if you actively flip, the moment you stop flipping, money stops. So therefore, the seller financing gives us a long-term, like a midterm stability. Seller financing gives us cash flow for an average 5 to 15 years with an average about 8 years. Mm-hmm. So if somebody builds up $10,000 in cash flow, they can stop doing what they're doing, and for the next 7 to 8 years, they get 10 grand a month coming in, which is a beautiful thing without any repairs. But what I'm ultimately doing is I'm taking any excess cash that I'm getting in from cash sales, from wholesales, and from seller financing, and I'm turning that and buying, at the end of the day, I am going into the residential properties and commercial properties, and I'm buying basically rentals. So as a result of that, I've used my land business, and I continue to use my land business as a cash cow to feed my other investments, so that whenever I want to stop doing that someday, wherever that may be, I love my land business. I might want to do it forever, but if I ever is a point that, I don't know, I get ill, I get sick, I get hit by a truck, or God forbid, but you know, that my family's taken care of by 100% passive cash flow just from real estate investments managed by property managers. So basically, that's my wealth philosophy. It's like you got to have multiple streams of income, and you got to have something that brings in the cash, and you take that cash and turn into something that brings forever cash, as I call it, cash that comes in forever.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Awesome. Well, I know that you teach other people how to do this, and you have a training program. If folks want to learn more about what we talked about here today, which is basically flipping land, which is fascinating. I need to learn more about it myself. So, but where should they go to learn more?
Sure, they can go to, if you want to learn about how exactly I do this land flipping, they can go to landprofitgenerator.com. Again, it's landprofitgenerator.com. There's a couple of videos on there on how we do that and so on. And they can also go to my other website, jackbosch.com. And there's Bosch, like the spark plugs and the power tools. It's BOSCH. As well as if you want to get the book, you can go to Amazon, grab it there. Forever Cash is the book. And or you can go to forevercash.com too. There's a website. There's a whole bunch of resources and articles and things about.
We'll add links. We'll definitely add links for all this stuff down below the video here for folks that want to learn more. It's fascinating, and you know, what's been interesting to me is that the market's gotten more competitive over the past, certainly the past year to 18 months. There's a number of folks that I've talked to that competitively. And this is why it's interesting for folks that just invest in one market versus those that invest in other markets, is competitively, they just pick up their ball and go play in another playground somewhere. So they go learn how to do something else in another market, maybe. So yeah, it's fascinating. Right.
Yeah. And this, I never had to do that, because this one worked from the beginning. It worked before the boom. It worked during the boom. It worked after the boom. Some of our largest checks were made after the boom, in the middle of the bust, in the middle of the when prices were really low, and market is now coming back, and it works, because when you buy properties at 10 to 20 cents on the dollar, it doesn't really matter so much what the market does. It matters when you hold on to them, but if you don't hold on to them, you just flip them. It doesn't really matter too much what the market does.
Yeah. So Jack, any kind of final words for folks that might have piqued their interest in investing in land, about some of the opportunity that exists?
Sure. One of the things in general speaking, one of the things that I want to encourage people is to, particularly if they're beginners in real estate, in real estate, I would encourage them to pick something that they can wrap their brain around, that they can handle. And there's a lot of great real estate techniques. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all these different techniques that are out there. Yeah. But make sure you ask the question to yourself and to whoever teaches it to you, in terms of, what are all the different people and all the different things involved that I have to learn and that I have to juggle doing a deal? Because when you do a commercial deal, for example, or multifamily, there's a whole bunch more complexity in there. Also much more profitable. You can make a lot of money in there. But if you're just dabbling in real estate, you might want to start with something that is really, really simple. Because that was my story. Because I couldn't fathom to understand how I was traveling all the time. I couldn't remotely rehab the thing. I didn't have a clue how this all costs. I had no time. But in land, I didn't really have to learn anything. I mean, I literally had to just realize how to value a property, which I told you already how that works, and how if I get it for 10 cents on the dollar, I mean, the worst case scenario is I get my money back, right? Or I get my money back and make a little profit. So there's no banks, there's no inspectors, there's no termites, there's no toilets, there's none of that stuff. So whether it's land or something else, but as you get started, I would suggest you pick something that's easy to get your first deal done, because the confidence building that comes with this is kind of like incredible. And then over time, you start doing the house deal. So now I wholesale houses. Now I rehab houses, my own houses that I have. Now I have a commercial property. But back in 2000, back when I started 10, 12 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do any of that because it would just freak the heck out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's fascinating, Jack. Thanks so much for sharing your story and some more information about flipping land. And again, we'll add the links down below for folks that want to learn more. I think I'm going to check it out myself because it sounds like a great opportunity to go where there's not a lot of competition.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jack.
Thank you very much for having me.
Stay in touch, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.